back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Can I get up with
And welcome back to The Law Show, CL 650, and we're talking about summer safety and all of the implications of getting out and supposedly having fun. And joining us today is Joe Murphy, QC, partner at MurphyBattista, and MurphyBattista, I apologize, and Mike Murphy from MurphyBattista. Got it right the second time around. Now, talking to you, gentlemen, about summer safety and the problems that can happen, do you, Joe, after all of these years, always look at what can go wrong? Is it, you want to go out and have a good time and go camping, but, you see all of the bad things that happen, right?
Zach, the clients that walk in our door are the people who have been to the beach or on the park or camping and have been badly hurt.
Because it's like supposed to be a benign activity and it ends up being something else.
Yeah, you see things and you just think, oh my God, how did this ever happen? They were just out having a good time. And all it takes is sometimes a moment of madness, sometimes just bad luck. And they come out, people who dive into a lake or into a river thinking sometimes pretty logically that this is deep enough to dive in, and they break their neck because it's not. It's 3 feet deep. Mm-hmm. People sitting around a campfire and someone throws something into the campfire to get it going better and it blows back and on the person. So we see the victims when things have gone wrong, and if anything, that heightens our sense of where potential dangers are when people go out and do things that should be fun. They should be fun for everybody, and everyone should go home, and all they should be left with is some good memories of a good time.
Mike, does it make you more cautious when you want to go on a zip line or go do something supposed to be, a little outside the ordinary?
In this line of work, it completely changes the way you drive. It completely changes the way you organize things and the steps you take. As Joe had mentioned, that you see sort of what the worst of the worst could come of. And you can't help but think about those moments and modify both your behavior and try to modify that of others that might be making the same mistake. Yeah,
Joe, we had talked about the waivers when you go on one of these things like a zip line, or I did this one at the Peak to Peak at Whistler, and I'm not picking on Whistler, but, as I was getting my ticket, I was looking at the back of the ticket, and you had mentioned you don't even have to read it. You're just saying you sign up for that waiver just by purchasing the ticket.
Sometimes you do, but Zach, you mentioned a moment ago about zip lines.
Yeah.
I had 2 clients from a zip line accident. Zip lines are supposed to work that a person is dispatched from the top of the hill, and when they're safely on the platform on the bottom, the next person comes down. These are 2 women who came down one after the other. They didn't know one another, but for some reason, the guy at the top sent the second person down without getting the all clear from the bottom. These 2 women collided near the bottom platform, and they both had concussions. Mm-hmm. So you'd think zip line, you're alone, you're zipping along, you go from one platform to the other, you have all the harness, what can go wrong? But that was a case where the system broke down, and you have 2 young women with concussions. So I do have that sense of what can go wrong in activities, because these are the people, again, that walk in the door to see us.
So does it change your psyche at all, you think?
Well, I think it makes you far more careful and aware of things. I have a friend, a doctor, who was out riding a bike, and she had her feet clipped into the pedals, and she stopped, so she's not moving, and she couldn't pull her foot out of the clip, fell over, and she broke her pelvis.
Wow.
And pelvis is the strongest bone in the body. It's like this ring. And it just showed me that, a fall from that distance onto pavement can cause this injury. And she was off work for a few months with her broken pelvis. But it just, so what I learned from that is don't use toe clips.
Mm-hmm. I had a huge battle with my dad because when I was a kid, I was really into cycling and had my road racing bike, and I wanted those clips so badly. Rat traps, we called them back in the day. And I battled, and he finally said, okay, but I guess I was pretty high-level cyclist, but still, it can happen. Yeah. So around camping, I mean, I have The problem is when you get gentlemen like yourself, it's all the war stories, right? The worst of the worst. A woman I know at a cottage in Ontario, big bonfire outside, everybody's standing around. Woman has had too many glasses of wine, falls into the fire, and then they call the ambulance and the fire department and the whole thing. And she's joking around as they're loading onto the ambulance about, I have another drink or whatever. And she dies 3 days later because of the shock against her. I'm not sure exactly the medical phenomenon, but and you just think to yourself, like, I am so leery of especially kids, wanting to stick a marshmallow in the fire and the kids start goofing around, and you think, all you need to do is lose your balance and you fall into the fire, which is raging at what temperature, I don't know, but it can't be good, right?
Yeah, some people are the authors of their own misfortune. Mm-hmm. If I go out and get absolutely stinking drunk and I do something absolutely crazy and end up injured or dead, that's my fault. But if I have a guest visiting me and I encourage them, I put pressure on them to have drink after drink after drink after drink, and something happens to them because they're drunk, maybe I have to share the blame for that because I was the one that gave them the liquor. And there's been a number of cases of people who go to bars, and bars have rules about not over-serving someone. But, of course, bars make more money by serving more liquor.
And the more you drink, the more you're loose with your wallet, right? Buy everybody a drink.
And the more you lose your judgment about when you've had enough and it should be time to go home. And there have been some interesting BC cases of people who have gone into bars who have got absolutely hammered. And there was one where the person staggering out to the parking lot was so drunk that one of the women customers in the bar said, "You guys can't let him go. You got to do something." And they just laughed at her, and he went out and caused a terrible accident within a few blocks of pulling away from the parking lot. And in that case, the judge found the bar liable. He found that fellow partially liable, but the bar also shared the responsibility. So, fires are bad. I think kids should roast marshmallows in fires, but at the same time, I think it's crazy to get drunk and be around a fire. But sometimes people can't be protected from their own stupidity, and you see things that happen and you just think, I can't believe they did that.
So what is the legal implication of having somebody on your property that has fallen, maybe puts their hand in and burns their hand, a little kid falls and puts their hand in the fire?
The law says your property has to be reasonably safe. So the question is, what's reasonably safe? Having a fire on your property, I don't think that's unsafe.
If in a cabin setting, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonably safe, but you want to set up rules that make sure it's reasonably safe for everyone. But you can't guarantee people's protection, and sometimes people do the most stupid things. Moment of madness sometimes creates a lifetime of problems.
Now, is there insurance you can have for somebody on your property?
Yes, your homeowner's insurance covers that. In fact, it covers people off your property as well. But yeah, homeowner's policy covers it when something happens, when claim that I worked on years ago, a fellow's at a party, he's on a deck, he's leaning against the railing's not properly secured, breaks and he falls and he's quite badly hurt. That's covered. And that's a fellow, did he have a few drinks? Yes, he was there with everyone having the barbecue on a beautiful summer night, but the reason that broke wasn't because he'd had a few drinks, it broke because it wasn't properly secured.
But then does the insurance company say, well, you didn't maintain the deck to a certain standard?
No.
You're covered.
People are covered even when they're stupid. So if I have a car and I know the brakes are going on it and I think I'm not going to spend the money for new brakes, or I don't have the money, and cause an accident, ICBC still pays.
I always wonder about that. I have a nice car. I buy it because it's powerful, it handles well, but it's also got all the latest safety. And when I jam on the brakes, it's going to stop quickly because it's got performance tires and big brakes and all those kinds of things. So I'm traveling down the road and it's a summer day and we haven't had much rain, and then it starts to rain, and the fella next to me, he's driving this clapped out old rust bucket, and the light turns red, and I put my brakes on, and driving a well-maintained car, perfectly straight line. He puts his brakes on, his front wheels lock up, and then he starts sliding towards me. First of all, he's got the brakes aren't maintained. He's got crappy tires, right? And so I always wonder, I'm doing everything I can to maintain my car and keep my family safe by having a proper running vehicle, and some guy doesn't. But in the eyes of insurance,
no, that if he slid into you, that's his fault, and his insurance ICBC pays.
Even though he hasn't maintained his car properly.
Yeah, the insurance is to pay for people who are negligent, and sort of a subset of negligent is just stupid.
Mm-hmm. So you go from negligent to dumb.
Yeah, but it's interesting what you mentioned about brakes, because, 10, 15, 20 years ago, they brought in anti-lock brakes.
Sure.
They make cars stop better, quicker, but the rate of rear-end collisions went up because people began driving closer to the car in front of them. So it was something that should have made things safer, but people reacted by driving faster. So
it's a phenomenon I get all the time, because people ask me, I want a vehicle where I can sit up high and see the road. And this is why a lot of people want these SUVs, right? Because they sit up higher. And women especially love SUVs because they get to see. And I always say to them, well, you ever notice who's always tailgating? It's the guy in the SUV, because he can see past you. If you've ever driven a little sports car, Joe, I know you have a sports car, I have a sports car, you can't see around. Oh, yeah. So what's the only way to see around? You have to sit back. Yeah. You've got to stay back an extra 2 or 3 car lengths in order to see. So sometimes it's false advertising. People who sit up higher, well, you can see better, therefore I'm going to tailgate more, right? Yeah. I'm kind of getting off subject here, but it's all part of the same thing. People believe something, and it's kind of false goods. All right, now this is one, Joe, I know you're fair-haired, light-skinned son. Has it always been a battle trying to stay out of the sun, and how important is it?
Well, I can speak about this, Zach, because my background, my heritage is Irish, which means I've got very fair skin. Mm-hmm. As a kid, I went out and played all the time, and I don't remember ever putting suntan lotion on. And I now have precancerous skin that I have to go and see my doctor every 6 to 12 months, and I get a variety of treatments. So I know it's dangerous. Australia has one of the brightest suns around in terms of their weather and their ozone. Yeah. And they have the highest rate of skin cancer in the world. They recognize that skin cancer causes more deaths than a variety of other cancers, including in kids aged 15 to 24.
Really? That young?
Yeah. In Australia, if you go to school and you don't have a hat, you're not allowed to go out at recess or lunch. So they're really, really conscious about it. It is dangerous. Sunburn's not bad. We've all had sunburns. But when you get into cancer and melanomas, they're potentially going to kill you. And you just got to be aware of the need for sunscreen, aware of the need to be conscious of that. Everybody loves to go out and do things in the sun, but just be aware that the skin, and even a dark pigment, isn't designed or isn't intended to be exposed to a lot of sun. The dark pigment is better at avoiding a sunburn, but it's not safe.
Well, the ironic thing about Australia is most of the people who colonized Australia were Irish and Scottish, fair-haired.
Criminals.
And, they're in the sunniest, one of the sunniest places on the planet, and they're of that northern European, kind of Vancouver weather most of the year, cloudy and rainy, and to go straight to the sunshine. All right, when we come back, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about protecting yourself from a lawsuit. We touched a bit about this with liability insurance and other aspects. Next on The Law Show on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.